Hi guys! So this is the first time I did the podcast in English with my friend Mr. Ben from Arizona, United States of America.
Yes. Apa kabar?
Apa kabar? Yeah. So yeah, how many years have you spent in Indonesia?
So far, I've been in Bali for more than 6 years.
That's actually quite long. I think I know you only for the last 3-4 years.
About more than 4.
Yeah. Oh, it's actually quite long.
Time flies when you're stuck in your house in a pandemic.
There's truth in that. So okay, Mr. Ben, tell me about your life. So you were born in Arizona, United States, and
I was born in California.
that's this one I just knew.
Yeah. So then we learn something new every day. I was born in California. My dad and mom, my dad was in the army, so they moved around a lot, and then my dad got out of the army. But I moved around quite a bit, but just mostly grew up in Arizona. So like 4th grade on.
You live in Arizona,
Yeah.
and you live in Arizona for college, or
Yes.
you were in the army, right? So you go straight from high school to the army or college army?
So I went to graduate high school, then went into the army for 4.5 years, and then went back to Arizona, and then I went to Arizona State University, ASU.
Asu. So what was the thought process of like joining the army? Because like in Indonesia, unlike Korea and unlike Singapore, we don't have mandatory military training, right?
Correct.
So I mean, like in my class of 45 people when I was in high school, 48, only one person enlisted to the army. But is in America or in your states or in your class in particular, is it like something more popular? Or something like people who's like, yeah, it's something cool?
Well, cool, it's more of like an option, right? So you sit there, you have an army recruiter come to your school, and they kind of provide an option. Same thing if like a university comes to your school or some other kind of like job in a sense. What they do is they say, well, do you want to go to college? It's like, not really. Do you want to go get a job? And it's like, oh, crap, not really. Here's another option for you. Join the army. So that's really what it broke down to. Is I didn't want to go to school right away. I was getting burnt out.
Yeah.
And I knew I didn't want to just get a job. So I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had really, 18 years old, no skills. It's going to go like work at McDonald's or something. I don't know. So I realized, okay, I can go in the army. My dad was in the army. My grandpa was in the army. So it's not like they pushed me. This is an option. And in the U.S., that's kind of what it really is. A lot of people from lower income families can get out of that poverty and just move to the military, have a guaranteed paycheck, 1st and 15th, food, uniform, a purpose, a sense. That's kind of what it is, a sense of purpose. Yeah. So it was more of like just something to kind of buy more time. So I had no idea what I wanted to do.
It is surprisingly simple. I thought there's a delicate through process of like, let me learn how, you're putting your life in the line, isn't it? I
Yeah.
thought it's gonna be something like there's a long thought process before you make such decision.
No. So what it broke down to was my buddy was at the time was going to the Navy. And he was going to the Navy recruiter, and I'm like, for some weird reason, I'm like, let me tag along. So I went to the Navy recruiter, the Marines, and then Air Force, and then the Army was there. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to talk to the Army guys. And it's more like, oh, all right, this sounds like something different. Like I knew I didn't want to go to school. And when you're 18 years old and you have this idea where like you're supposed to go to college and be a doctor.
Yeah.
My parents didn't pressure me in that sense. Like, being in Asia, you have these stereotypical families where it's like your whole life is planned.
Yes, correct.
So in America, for some families, it's like that. But my mom, my dad are more supportive in the sense of like, do whatever you want to do. Just be happy.
Yeah.
Which you kind of don't have a direction sometimes.
So you joined. Is it like hard to get inside the army? Because here in Indonesia, it is hard to join the Indonesian army.
No. I mean, you simply just go to the recruiting office and you say, hey, I'd like to join. And then you sit there and talk to you for a little bit. You do like a test called the ASVAB. And it's kind of just a test on all of your different types of skills, mechanical skills and just thought processes. And it kind of gives you a score. And based on that score, they give you a list of possible jobs. For me, I had 110 jobs available.
And that's a lot.
I think maybe even more.
You're a genius.
No. But the idea was, all I wanted to do was go blow something up. So I went into artillery. I didn't need to have a high score to go into artillery at all. You can just barely get in and figure it out. But I got to go do that. My mom, she's like, why don't you do something, use your brain? I'm like, nah, I'll do that later. Today, I'm going to go blow something up. Lack of a frontal cortex, I could say, right? It's stupid 18-year-old.
So is it, because you are in artillery, so typically you are, behind the line. Is it like easy or is it hard to be an artilleryman?
It's like any job. There's interesting moments, boring moments. But it's not really about the job itself, more along the lines of the environment you're in. The military is one of those kind of things where you're dressed a certain way, you talk a certain way, you have to treat people higher up a certain way. So you're always kind of like walking on eggshells in a way because you're doing certain things in a certain structured environment. So the first rules of the game is essentially figure out how to blend into the military kind of life.
The military culture
starts that process. And then once you get into it, then like learning the job, like you get the on-the-job kind of training, and you make a mistake, your bosses can swear and cuss at you and belittle you in a way. And it's acceptable in a way. Not so much in a regular job where you get called into an office like, okay, so we got to work on this. No, it's a little bit faster. Faster learning curve. Sometimes with a kick to the head.
But, literal.
And that's old-fashioned. Not mine.
But is it like the job itself? All right, you put this huge cannonball inside this cannon, and then you push one button, close your ears, and it blows up. That part, is it easy or is it actually?
It's pretty simple. it's not like pirates where they're kind of doing that, but like so you have a whole team, and the idea that the process of doing all of that, like you have like the shell and the canister, and you have fuses inside, and then you have a certain type of like fuse on the top, right? And then you kind of stuff it all in there, or the charges and then the fuse, right? So then you have to have a certain type of shell. And then, but once you're there, they call him number one man. He takes it and he puts it in there and then locks it up. And then he gets out of the way, and the other guy is looking through a scope. And this is the really precise part. We got to make sure we're aimed really correct, mils, smaller than inches, in a sense. And we have the smart team, right? The guys in the tent doing all the math. We got to just get it in the right area. But essentially, when you pull the trigger, it's just like a lever. And it's so insert, close, pull. That's it.
So it's just like in video games, just press R and then.
Pretty much. It's pretty. It's not.
No, it's not rocket science.
You don't need to be a rocket scientist to do it. No, that's why in the military, it's one of the lower scores. Infantry and artillery, the ASVAB score can be like even below the normal, and you can get a waiver sometimes to get in. It's not a genius to do it. It's not a genius, guys. If I get any feedback from people, that you're fooling yourself. It's not easy. It's not hard. You don't have to be a genius.
So, and then you're enlisted for a service, right?
Yeah.
To Iraq.
No. So that's not how it works. So like you got enlisted in, you got enlisted in non-enlisted, right? So like you got sergeant, like private. You go in as a private. It means you don't go to college right away. And then you got the guys that are enlisted. They're the officers. They go to like college and West Point and become a second lieutenant. And then you get stationed. So what you're referring to is getting stationed, which is like you can get stationed all around the world.
Yes.
And I was stationed in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, which is the home of the 101st Screaming Eagles. So if you were seeing a military movie like the Band of Brothers back in the day, it's the one with the eagle on their patch. So it's pretty famous unit in a sense in the army. But you get deployed. So you get stationed and then you get deployed to combat zones such as Iraq.
So how do you feel when you are like someone tells you, all right, man, pack your bags and next day we'll fly into the Middle East, baby?
So it's not that quick either.
So do you have a choice? Do they say, all right, do you want to like quit? Do you want to resign? You just like, you don't have an option?
Well, there's always an option, right? So you can go AWOL, which is just leave, right? And that's a federal crime.
Don't do that.
So the loophole is called, what is it called? It's conscientious observer, which is like which means essentially that you disagree with what the Army stands for, the military stands for. Conscientious objector. That's what it's called. You're objecting to it. So you're really thinking, this is not for me. You have to go through a little paperwork and documents to get to do that. But no, it's a process. I knew I was going to go to get deployed. I picked a combat MOS, and MOS is like your job. And I went into the Army when we're already at war. It's pretty obvious what I was going to do. So you get your unit, and they tell you the first day after basic training, you get to the unit, you're like, all right, we're preparing to go to war. All right, we're going to be going to Iraq, and they tell you kind of a time frame, and then you get like several months to start preparing, and they're like, okay, we're going to be leaving around these dates. They don't tell you exactly, but you start getting pretty close, you know when, and it's like, get your bags and we're ready to go. So you lead up to it. You know you're going, and it's... But yeah, there are a lot of people that will, like back in the day, would smoke weed and get kicked out or do something, and then, yeah, there's a lot of crazy ideas because war is not really fun. It's not a video game.
Yeah, I think so. That I'll be pretty scared. I don't like the idea of the possibility of dying. So how do you feel? Are you excited, nervous?
Again, like 18 years old, 19 years old, I had no emotion. I was like, fully like, I mean, there's not no emotion, but you're fully ingrained in the life.
Oh.
You mentally ready to go, you're going. So it's something I'm like, okay, let's go. But again, it's the idea, where like your brain isn't fully developed, you're part of a team, and you're serving a purpose. So you're like, okay, they build you up to this kind of moment where you're like, you're going. It's like, let's ready to go. So being nervous, no, I think it was too stupid to be really nervous. I was 19 years old. He was like
19 years old, and then I think by 20 you are already in Iraq.
I was in Iraq already at 19, and then 20 I was home, and then 21 back to Iraq.
Oh, so it's only like 6 months at a time.
It was a year. So I got into the Army in September. Is when I went to basic training. September 2004. So like 4 months after graduating high school, I was going to basic training, graduated in December. I was at my unit January 2005. So January 2005, October 2005, we leave. I was 19 years old. So 19, we come back around October 2006. And then 2006 to 2007, we leave again the next year, 2007. So then I was like 18 at the unit, 19 in Iraq, 20 back home, and then 21 back in Iraq, and then came back and got out right around 22 years old. I turned 22 in Iraq, came home 22, and then done.
And you decided not to be like full-time Army guy.
Well, I mean, in the Army, you have to you sign a contract, so it can be 3, 4, or 5 years, and then after that's up, you can choose to get out, or you can choose to renew a contract, re-up, as they say. So I chose 2 times to Iraq. GI Bill sounds pretty good. I'm ready to go to college. And again, the Army allowed me to kind of understand the world a little bit differently and get inspired, right? Because you meet people older than you. You're a kid in a grown-up world.
Yeah.
And you got grown-ups you're dealing with, and they kind of inspire you and kind of encourage you to kind of do something, maybe not necessarily different, but like, what can you do?
Yeah.
Which kind of helped.
I can relate to you because when I was 20, I'm already out of college and I started helping my parents' property business, meeting agents and everything. But I think your quote unquote, to a certain extent, your experience is superior dealing with all of these generals and peoples that have living their life on the very edge for so long. They must be like some very special people.
I mean, it's like any community, right? Like you're part of a giant team, and it's this crazy workforce thing where all your neighbors essentially either in the Army or they were in the Army. But yeah, you have people that you just don't like. You have people that you like, people that are just you forget. Like it's like anything. Like
it's just life. It's just like a classroom.
It's like exactly like a classroom.
Classroom.
But the people that kind of like you latch on to when you get out, you still kind of keep contact. But at the end of the day, one thing that we have in common is military, like personnel in general. It doesn't matter if it's Air Force, Marines, Navy, Army, even the Coast Guard or something. We're a very small population of the overall percentage of the population.
Yes.
And so we have that kind of bond no matter what. You know, we don't have to hang out or talk every single day, but that'll always be that kind of like.
Yeah. So the phrase "once a soldier is always a soldier," it's true in a way.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay. So enough of this soldier's life. Yeah. So you're done, and then ASU.
Yeah, ASU.
ASU life. Yeah.
Arizona State University. That's one of my goals. I remember when I was in 4th grade, when I first moved to Arizona, I had a parent-teacher conference going into my school. My principal or teacher, they're asking me, like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to go to Arizona State. And I didn't know what it was. I just knew I saw it on TV. And I'm going to go there. Because, okay.
Sounds cool.
And 10 years old.
10 years old, yeah.
And I remember that. I held on to that goal. So when I got out, I realized that I didn't do really well enough in high school to be able to go straight to the university. So I had to go to community college first, which honestly was great because after 4.5 years of not being in a school environment, I had to kind of relearn how to study and relearn how to kind of prioritize my learning habits and be in that kind of environment. So going to a community college, smaller, it's Mesa Community College, go Thunderbirds. But then from there, after 2 years, I transferred to Arizona State and did that. Got a degree in psychology, minor in communications, and went to work in finance.
Wait, what? This part is new. I don't know you were in finance.
It's always full of surprises.
Full of surprises.
Yeah.
I thought from. Oh, okay. So, how's your finance days?
Oh, so I worked for a company called Charles Schwab. It's a big, financial firm. One, it's great people at the company, right? A lot of people that are amazing. They really good, environment, I think. And their hiring habits, so you go through this kind of gauntlet of managers, like a 2-hour kind of interview. And, they hired me without any experience, which is great because most jobs you need experience in order to get the job. But how do you get experience without getting a job? They gave me a job. The problem is I don't care about other people's money. I don't care about your money. I don't care about you complaining about your money and talking on the phone all day. So it wasn't for me. I went from being in the Army where I'm always up and going and going. And then in college, I'm in class, but I'm still moving around, kind of being free for 4 years. And then I'm in a cubicle, in a desk, on a phone, talking to 80 to 100 people a day about their money. And it was sucking the life out of me in a sense. So
what are you doing exactly in Charles Schwab? So
Charles Schwab, yeah.
Yeah, Charles Schwab. So somebody invests their money inside the company?
So I worked in the 401k department.
So
that's like the retirement within your work has like a retirement plan. It's called the 401k.
Yeah.
So I kind of facilitated those phone calls from the employees of the company. And they had these certain kind of options, and most of the time, a lot of companies allow you to take a loan out of your 401k. So it's more me talking about processing those and then trying to educate and talk about their options and what they can do and why they should do this and kind of educate them in a way. And I did that 80 times a day, and it was the same phone call all the time.
Hello, Mr.
Same reasons, yeah. And he'd be like, hello, thank you for calling Charles Schwab. My name is Ben. How can I help you? Okay. Great. And you can put a happy face on, but to do that over and over and over and over again.
I think you'll be pretty excited for the first 10 times, but the last 70 has been...
You get burnt out. And every once in a while you get a really good conversation. But for me, it was difficult to deal with, and I decided to go back to college.
So you got a master's?
Yes, sir.
In psychology?
Yeah, so specifically addiction counseling. So,
addiction counseling.
Yes, drugs and alcohol addiction. I'm kind of focused in on that, which that was interesting.
All right, so maybe one of the viewers here are addicted to something, maybe porn, maybe video games, maybe cigarettes, maybe drugs, maybe prostitutes. Any words of advice?
Well, if you want to get off of those things, there's ways of doing that. But if you get off those things and you're a terrible person, you might as well just go back to doing what you're doing. Because we're only on this planet for a very short period of time.
All right, man.
I mean, we're only on this planet for a very short time, right? So, if you're miserable and you're like sober of whatever addiction you have, go back to being addicted. Just don't bother anybody in a different way. It doesn't matter, right? I mean, at the end of the day, like, oh, you're addicted to drugs. Great. Are you stealing from your mom? Okay, that's a problem, right? Get your drugs some other way, right? Find a different solution that's not going to steal from your mom, right? But if you want to get off, you got to really sit there and think about, like, why do I want to get off this? How is it affecting my life? And usually it's negative, right? So if it's affecting your relationships, your work, your actual money, and if you're doing all of that, causing a lot of problems, then you got to find a way to get off it. Otherwise, you're just going to end up dead or alone, and that sucks. So if you want to, like, get off it because you want to better yourself, there's a way of doing that. But again, if you get off it and you are miserable, just get back on it.
That's a very surprising answer, I have to admit. Yeah, what a plot twist. You went to the States, you spent like 2-3 years for your master's, correct?
Yeah, 2 years, yeah.
Yeah. So guys, if you are one of those Indonesians that really want to study in the States, study psychology, how to recover from addiction, so that's the bottom line, that's the final result, stay addict.
Well, I mean, it's the idea is that there's always going to be drugs, there's always going to be drug addicts, so if I ever want to go back to the States, I'm going to always have an option for employment. Just have to deal with stupid insurance companies. That's the other problem.
So, all right, so you graduated with a master's in
addiction
counseling, and then?
After I graduated, while I was doing that, I realized I saw one of my buddies on Facebook, and he was in Cambodia. Another buddy was in China at the time, and they were like, "What are you guys doing there?" "We're teaching." And I'm like, "How do you do that?" I just want to travel. Like, that's one of my things for a long time, even back in high school, watching the Travel Channel, Food Channel. But we always get these shows that talk about how expensive it is to travel, and I'm like, "Hey, travel cheap." So I asked them, like, they're like, "Oh, just get your certificate, your TEFL, teach English as a foreign language." I'm like, "All right, how do you do that?" And they said, "Here, go here." So I did that, and while I was getting my master's, I started taking an internship, teaching as getting that certificate as well. And I bought myself a plane ticket to the Philippines as a present for graduating from my master's, so I can go on my first trip. I tried to get my friends to go. I had a passport for 8 years without any stamps on it because none of my friends wanted to go. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. I tried to invite people. Everyone said no. And then I decided to go by myself. My dad, his wife is Filipino, so I got to go with her family. So that kind of helped out. But I'm like, once I started doing that, I'm like, okay, how do I do this job? Finished that, found a job, luckily in Bali, Indonesia, which is where the first thing I said was, where is that?
But how's your experience? I haven't been to the Philippines, and so how do you see the Philippines?
Philippines are great. It's got a beautiful country. A lot of people are amazingly nice. It has its problems. Like Manila is crazy traffic, just like any large giant city. And the food is good. I like Filipino food. Really love Filipino food. It's just not spicy, naturally spicy. So it's tough. You gotta try to add. My wife is funny. She talks about their ketchup is like banana ketchup. It's really sweet. Where I like things that are spicy, so it's really kind of, you got to find certain foods that are less sweet and just more savory, because foods that are savory kind of like everywhere.
I see.
Yeah, the Philippines is a great country. Just if you like really spicy food, bring hot sauce. Solution.
But for some reason you don't decide to stay in the Philippines.
Oh yeah, that was easy because 85% of the country speaks English. So trying to teach English as a foreign language is
it's like da-da.
It's not really
we are an ex-American colony for a reason, Mr. Ben.
So I was like, oh, okay, that's gonna be tough, I guess. Of course I didn't really pursue it. I just looked at the percentage of that. I'm like, all right, well, I'm just gonna go find somewhere else. But I only went there for vacation. I didn't go there to work. I just went to go check it out and travel.
So in the Philippines you heard about Bali?
No, I was back in the States. So I went to the Philippines for vacation.
And then back to the Arizona.
And then I went to LA for a while. And I was back in Arizona and looking for a job. Once I finished my TEFL internship, I just went on a couple websites, and most of the callbacks were from China. A lot for China. And then I just kept looking and found one for Bali. And I told myself I would never be on a phone ever again in a cubicle. But the job I got in Bali was on a phone.
Oh, in a cubicle. So, okay. So, what's your first job in Bali?
I worked at English Firsts.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, but it was English Live, so it was like the online version. Most of my students were Chinese.
Oh.
So it was, it was kind of like, but it got me out. I knew I could do something for a year, but I had to like sacrifice going back to like what I didn't want to do in order to figure out what I wanted to do, and it was like the best decision I made.
So from EF, how you become a teacher?
So that's a really cool story. I like.
There we go.
This is the evolution of like of who I was, right? So again, a lot of my friends would tell me that I am like really intense and not really approachable, and my attitude was a lot different, and I was really like kind of still like that really angry kind of person. That's from the military kind of aspect, and I started to kind of change my outlook when I got back to Bali. I was here for a year and left for 4 months to the U.S. and then came back, and I started just changing how I talk to people, how I approach people, smiling a little bit more, not a lot, just a little bit more. And one of my neighbors, her name was Anna. She had a friend, said, "Hey, are you an English teacher?" She's like, "Yeah, the school is looking for English teachers. You should try." And I'm like, "Cool, all right." So I applied, and it was at Regent School here in Bali, and I got the job somehow. I didn't think I was gonna get the job. My wife's like, "You should try it. Why not? Let's go for it." If they say no, they say no. You already have a job, so might as well just say it. The crazy thing is though, was that the girl Anna was friends with another girl named Anna who worked at Regents, of course, but I was also a Toastmaster. So I could almost, where I'm at now, and this is not commercial for Toastmasters, but it is.
But it is. Surprise, surprise. We're both Toastmasters member, guys. That's how we met.
So that is kind of how I went. Just changed my personality, and then my neighbor just talking to people and interacting, and you kind of know people, and just being nice, and it kind of offered it this way, and it kind of just worked that way. And this is my 5th year at Regent School. So amazingly, I don't know how, but they still want me, I guess.
So how's your military experience like shape you as a teacher? Does it help? Does it like makes you like a unique teacher, or?
I think we have to you kind of use it in a way. So classroom, this is the advice I got, because having a psychology background and then a military background, you can kind of like you learn about the mind of people. So what makes people tick, but also the military is very like strict. And I was told, kids, they can see right through you. So don't be fake, and also don't let them run run the classroom. So I created a baseline expectation where people thought I was mean at first, like, "Oh, you're so mean, you're so intense." I'm like, no, I'm just conditioning, right?
Yeah.
Conditioning, Pavlov's dog, right? So you condition a certain way, certain expectations, time management, behavior, and then when someone goes out of line, you kind of like are quick to correct, right? And at times, maybe it was a little too harsh for 10-year-olds. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
But now I'm in high school, so it's a little bit easier. But now the kids understand that, and I'm a better teacher also. I'm more chill, of course, because again, when the kids are older, they're a little bit more mature, of course. But the expectations are there, so they know how I am, and they know my expectations for classroom, where it's like, don't talk when someone's talking. That's just like respect, and so it's just those kind of like little behaviors that the military kind of teaches you to kind of really be like organized in time management and making sure you get your point across clearly, not nicely, but clearly.
Wow. So Ben, so we are approaching at the end of the video, but then again, I just realized that your life is so rich. I mean, in terms of very varied, yeah. I mean, like from your high school years to your military life, and you're like deployed, so you're actually fighting, and then you go to psychology, back to university, and then psychology, and from psychology you went to finance, and from finance you went back to master's degree, and from master's degree you're teaching English. From teaching English you're teaching at a school. And that's something that for me is very intriguing, because most of the time, not all, but most of the time, we are in Asia, we have like one career.
Yeah.
I mean, like I graduated from high school, I tried college, not for me. 6 months, I kicked myself out, and then okay. In the last 12 years of my life, it's just business, and I guess I can bet on myself that in the next 12 years, also in business. So it's like in Asia, it's more like narrow. You know, you put one career and then you walk it through until you're dead. But your life is so rich in a way. So, like, how do you? What is your words for like someone young, maybe like 20, and like, what do I want to do with my life?
Well, the good thing about 20-year-olds that don't know what they want to do with their life is, okay, you probably don't. Fun fact: your parents don't either. It's your life. They think they know what they want you to do, you know, because they want to be able to kind of brag and they want to also be proud of you, and they're doing what they know and they're teaching you. So like in the U.S., it's more now that people have a lot of different careers. People change. It used to be that way, where people would take a job, graduate high school, go to college, and then work for the company for 40 years, and then retire, get a pension, and then they die. For me, like I realized I wanted to kind of go against the grain, and I get bored really easily. So it's not really like a positive trait, but I get a lot of interests, and when I get a new interest, I want to like pursue it. But the problem is I'm not going to be really super great at like one thing because of the fact that like I try something, okay, I did pretty good. All right, move on to the next. But the idea is that you talk about betting on yourself. When I left to Bali and I came back and I knew I was going to be here for a long period of time, I gave everything away, took money out of my finance to pay off all the bills and have a little bit left. And that was the idea, to bet on myself, and I can do it not by the book. And you look at anybody that's amazing or great, doesn't matter what field. If it's like a basketball player, like, you know, Michael Jordan, the dude was obsessed. You look at like all these billionaires that people always want to quote. Look at Steve Jobs, Jack Ma, Mark Zuckerberg. They're freaks. They're obsessed with one thing in particular, and nothing's going to stop them. So if you want to be that person that wants one thing, you've got to be obsessed and get your 10,000 plus 10,000 plus 10,000 hours in. Now, if you want to kind of live a free life, or you don't always know what's going to be next, but you know that you are successful, just do it. Like it's your life. It's going to be harder if your family says they're not going to support you. I'm lucky where my family just in the beginning, like, do what you want, be happy, right? That's kind of what it was. So again, I didn't have any like one direction. I had the whole world. I mean, when you have a lot of different directions, psychology, you get a little stressed out because you don't know which way to go sometimes. You try a path and it's like, well, that sucks. You can keep going, or you can turn around, or you can just make your own path by veering at like 45 degrees to the right or left, you know. So you just keep doing it, because again, it doesn't matter if you're the poorest person on the planet to the richest person on the planet. We're all going to die eventually. And no one cares how much money we have at that point when we're dead. You're dead. So go out and have as much fun as possible. Learn new things, meet new people, try different cultures, try different food, and, you know, soak up to what the world has and create a lot of memories, and just be interesting, because then you can reach a lot of different people.
That's very deep, Mr. Ben. I'll record it. I think it's going to be a very nice speech title. Just do it. It's your life. Thank you. Bye.